Right now, we are in such an interesting time because we have a ton of first-time founders. Maybe they're technically skilled people who are rolling out their side projects for the first time. They're going to market with a product that they're just trying to gain traction with. So I thought it would be cool to take a look at this dev tool for Ruby called Ductwork today. Now, this is going to be interesting because admittedly, I'm not a developer. I don't have hands-on experience with Ruby. But even with that out of the way, there are so many things I see just on this homepage and the funnel that we can dive into and apply some of the time-tested marketing principles and concepts that I see working elsewhere for tools like this and more broadly across the technology industry. So we're going to run through this homepage, maybe check out the GitHub and see what opportunities we can use to make this homepage messaging sharper, make the positioning stronger, and do what we do to try to get Ductwork some more paying users. We see the headline, the subheader. Let's check it out. Build durable workflows in Ruby. Ductwork is a modern workflow orchestration framework that makes complex job pipelines maintainable, durable, and recoverable. Okay, so very to the point headline. Now, I do understand that developers looking for a tool like this, really, they just want the facts straight off the bat. They don't necessarily want some of the flowery, heavy marketing, persuasive language. But with that said, I think there are some ways to frame this where the value is conveyed a little bit more persuasively that's not overwhelming or isn't off-putting to this audience, which can be sensitive to that kind of language. Talking about tools or workflows that break on you at the worst possible moment, the outcomes of that, you make customers angry, you lose customers, they churn, or maybe the code breaks to such a degree that you have to delete huge chunks of the work that you've been doing for days or weeks, and that's just gone now, and you have to start from scratch, and that's a huge time investment, and you lost all your work. I mean, that's like a worst case scenario. The point being that there's always a way to look at a feature set, something that a product does, and extract from that some more persuasive ways of showcasing the product by hitting on those pain points, making these situations relatable to real devs, calling out some of those common experiences that devs have and offering Ductwork as a solution. Now, right here, our hero image is like a block of code that shows how Ductwork actually looks in your IDE, in your developer console. So I think this is effective. It shows what the product actually looks like when you're using it. That's never a bad thing. The one thing here I would recommend is adding some sort of interactive element to this, something that shows visitors immediately that Ductwork is in fact the product that they're looking for. And the way that they're doing it right now is wasting time. It's stressful. So I just put together this demo with Claude with an interactive button at the bottom. This is an example of what a Sidekiq job would look like. That's one of the Ductwork's main competitors. So with some error notifications at the top, you can see there's 25 lines of code here. It looks messy to somebody who knows this thing well, fragile or brittle, whatever terminology they might use. Then when you click Ductwork at the bottom, the code self-deletes and rewrites itself with the Ductwork way. With a tagline at the bottom, we can change that. But now compared to the static code block on the homepage that isn't interactive, it doesn't show you a before and after, that interactive element can do a lot of the heavy lifting right out of the gate. And so you know exactly what you're getting into. Now we scroll on down to this kind of feature stack here, 6 different feature cards. I think this is a strong section. It could be spruced up a little bit. This is solid, but I also think that we can stack some social proof elements and just some more signs of life to show that Ductwork is an actively maintained product, that the founder is serious about this, that he's involved, that this isn't just some dead thing that he rolled out years ago and forgot about and it's still sitting here. And there are some ways to do that. Maybe show a line stating how many GitHub stars it has, how many users have downloaded it, recent commits, the latest commit, it has 70 stars on GitHub, meaning that 70 people have saved it on that platform. So I think it would be worth going directly to some of those people, asking for a little blurb, asking for a quote, and seeing if we can use their names and faces and positions at their company, and then add those quotes in here. Look, even if they're not paying users, here's what I got out of Ductwork. I saved X amount of time with this. It saved me this hassle. So, every piece of social proof does not have to be perfect, especially at this early stage. You can have some names, faces, quotes, and if they're recognizable, if they're real people and people can verify it, I mean, that goes a long way, like I said, just to add some life to this page and make it feel real and current and relevant. And also on the point of authenticity, I'd really like to see the founder here, get on camera, maybe do a 20-second video of why he built Ductwork, what led him to it, the problems that he was having with alternatives or, stuff that he had tried to build before, stuff that he sees in the Ruby community as alternatives. And just putting a face and a name with this product, I think could do a lot of work. So I think this use case section is helpful. I think you got to have it, but I think just adding, a few more code blocks here, just some short blocks about what a document processing job looks like, what the ETL job looks like versus order fulfillment, email campaigns, because everybody on a Ruby team is working on something different and they produce, an application as a whole working together. So, we want to have a little something for everyone here and something that they can relate to just on a technical level, and show and tell is important here. I think on the homepage, something that we got to have is a competitor call out or a competitor comparison, comparing alternatives. So the big two in Ruby are called Sidekiq and Resque. So making just a simple table of here's what you get with Sidekiq, here's what you get with Resque, and here's why Ductwork is better. The more specific, the better. And if Ductwork can actually outperform them on that checklist, then that's something you absolutely got to have here, because that's how we're going to get paying users for Ductwork, is getting people to switch over from those alternatives. One more thing that we can maybe add up to the top or squeeze in here somewhere is some kind of build versus buy calculator. I saw this on the Sidekiq homepage. What happens if you build this yourself? How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to save you, short, medium, long term, if you switch to Ductwork, based on the size of your team and how much time you're dedicating to this. So that's a formula that's kind of tried and true in this space. And I think it couldn't hurt to have it, or some version of a calculator like this. Now, here in the pricing section, we get to a bit of a dilemma, with the open source thing. This is pretty common. Most of the core functionality with Ductwork, you are going to get from open source, just downloading the gem file and adding it and running it. To get people to upgrade to that pro tier, maybe you get an upgraded dashboard, or you get some, feature that you just can't live without. I think icons here could help just, make a visual distinction, making the icons different or brighter, or making this glowing. I mean, we're getting more into like design and CRO psychology side of things, but those things do help. And so, we need to do everything we can here to get people to upgrade. Before we wrap this up, we'll head over to the blog, just take a quick look at that. We have one blog entry from earlier this year, January 5th. Right off the bat, I see, he mentions Sidekiq and Resque and some of the other competitors. And he does do a good job here of, separating Ductwork and differentiating it. Even here, we see a better framing of the shortcomings of, other solutions compared to Ductwork. We're digging into some of the pain points, some of the frustrations. So already we see a lot of diamonds in the rough here. The founder here does seem to have a good intuitive sense of how to frame his product versus other products, but this is something that we can polish up, bring to the homepage, and then eventually put out into more blog articles, more content, founder-led stuff. And to some degree, it's a volume game with getting that message out, repeating it, putting different twists on it, using different use cases, pairing that with the social proof, the testimonials. All of these different tactics are in our toolbox. We just need to pick the right ones, put them in the right place, and just keep the train rolling. So that about wraps it up for Ductwork. I think this is a really interesting case study. There are a lot of tools coming out like this right now with solo founders. Maybe they need help with distribution or just positioning, marketing more broadly. So I'm glad we dug into this. If you liked the video, hit the like, the follow, subscribe, whatever, and I'll see you next time.